Good evening, you are tuning into AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. Is it a confidence and supply agreement or not? Opposition leader clarifies. And affected mother shares grievance on government's appeal against automatic citizenship. That's coming up. The election for a new deputy speaker that was supposed to happen today is postponed to the next parliament sitting. According to Law Minister Datuk Seri Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, this is because the government is looking to create a third deputy speaker position that will be filled by an opposition MP. But that requires an amendment to the federal constitution.
Maka dengan itu kita akan membuat satu peraturan mungkin supaya salah seorang daripada speaker yang tiga nanti setelah diluluskan akan disandangkan oleh pihak daripada pembangkang.
He added that he had discussed the matter with the Attorney General. The proposed amendment, he said, could have its first reading by the end of the current session and later be passed during the following parliamentary session in October. There is no need for the opposition to back the Prime Minister in a confidence vote if it is tabled. According to opposition leader Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, this is because the bipartisan MOU inked with the government yesterday is not a confidence supply agreement. He maintained that the opposition's stand remains that the Prime Minister should test his confidence in the Dewan Rakyat.
Sebab itu bagi kita bermula dengan asas ini. Harus ada undi percaya. Baik. Tetapi kita tidak mahu isu itu yang terkait dengan isu legitimasi atau keabsahan membatalkan usaha kerjasama dalam bidang-bidang utama termasuk COVID-19 dan ekonomi. Sebab itulah saya sebut kepada Perdana Menteri walaupun kita tidak setuju dengan keputusan Perdana Menteri untuk tidak meneruskan dengan undi percaya, kita tetap akan berikan kerjasama berbincang soal memorandum persefahaman.
Anwar also rubbished speculation that with the signing of the bipartisan MOU, Pakatan is now bound to vote for the government when the 2022 budget is tabled in the House. He said the opposition will only consider supporting or abstaining from voting for the budget if the government includes them in any of its discussions and negotiations. The government will not review the new and more stringent conditions under the Malaysia My Second Home program. Home Minister Datuk Seri Hamzah Zainuddin said the revised criteria is aimed to attract genuine, high-quality participants who can contribute positively to economic growth. He said the government will, however, consider some flexibilities for the existing MM2H holders. Hamzah stressed that the tightened requirements for the program was done in the best interests of the country. Meanwhile, Hamzah noted the different policies for MM2H and immigration between the Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak, and it said it was due to the special provisions outlined under Section 64 and 65 of the Immigration Act, allowing for the territories to manage their immigration affairs and foreigners' entry. The MM2H program, which ceased in 2019, is set for a reactivation next month. And here's a roundup of other top stories of the day. The government has announced that it will reduce the current number of rules under the COVID-19 prevention SOPs from 181 to just 10 as the country heads into the endemic phase next month. Defence Minister Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Hussein said the National Security Council will need between 2 and 3 weeks to finalise the list, after which the new streamlined SOPs will be presented to the Prime Minister before being announced to the public. Students of higher learning institutions will be allowed to return to campus in stages beginning October 15. Higher Education Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Noraini Ahmad said the permission was only given to fully vaccinated students in all categories and involved all phases of the National Recovery Plan. She added that only fully vaccinated academic and non-academic staff would be allowed on campus. COVID-19 case numbers continued to show a decline for the fourth day running, with 15,669 cases recorded in the last 24 hours. The total cases in Malaysia now surpass 2 million since the pandemic begun. Meanwhile, according to the Prime Minister, 74.7% of Malaysia's adult population are fully vaccinated, while 91.6% have received the first dose as of 13 September. There was an air of disappointment among Malaysian mothers with children born overseas. This is following the government's decision to appeal against a High Court ruling to allow Malaysian women equal right to automatically confer citizenship on their children. We speak to one of the affected mothers, Gayatri Siva, who shares her thoughts on this latest development.
Heartbreak, tears. We just couldn't believe it that this was happening, that after all this, that, you know, it's the right thing to do. And after all that, that the government decided to appeal, after a judge had ruled that, you know, our grievances were real, that what we were going through and the hardship that us Malaysian women, Malaysian mothers were going through were real. So, yeah, I think it's just been a roller coaster.
As with other mothers that are in the same predicament as her, Gayatri hoped that the government would withdraw the appeal against the High Court's judgment, as this would ease the burden on them and their children.
I think, honestly, you know, if they could withdraw their appeal, that would be the best possible outcome. I don't know if it will happen, but that is what we are hoping would happen based on how the public is kind of reacting, how other women are kind of reacting to this, because the discrimination, the gender discrimination is being pointed out, that this doesn't just affect a small group of Malaysian mothers, it actually impacts all women, because this could happen to any one of us at some point in our lives. We don't choose our life partner, we don't choose who we fall in love with, we don't choose where it's kind of tucked there, right? It's fate.
Gayatri also called on the public to help them by signing a petition for the government to withdraw its appeal, with the link of the petition available on Family Frontier's social media pages. On September 9, the High Court ruled in a landmark decision to allow Malaysian mothers equal right to automatically confer citizenship to their children born abroad. Currently, only children born outside the country to Malaysian fathers are recognized as Malaysian citizens under the law. We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Welcome back. Last week, Human Resource Minister Datuk Seri M. Saravanan said authorities can take action against workers who refuse COVID-19 vaccination under the Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994. We asked employment lawyer Damien Keithan if the act can mandate vaccination at work. According to Damien, Section 15 and 24 of the Act does stipulate a possible offence to those who risk safety of themselves and others at the workplace, but they have their limitations.
In summary, Section 15 simply says that an employer has the duty to provide a safe working environment. And Section 14 says that an employee has a duty to take reasonable care of himself and others, as well as to comply with any instructions with regard to occupational safety and health. But case laws that have been decided in regards to Sections 15 and 24 are merely limited to the context of industry, individual accidents and injuries. So until and unless there is a law which says that, look, there is mandatory law on vaccination, the courts will have to decide whether employees who refuse vaccinations, I will call them anti-vaxxers for this episode, can be said to be disruptive of occupational health and safety.
On top of that, Damien said companies cannot force employees to get vaccinated unless initially stated in the contractual agreement. So how can employers encourage vaccination and ensure safety against COVID-19 at the workplace?
A relationship between an employer and employee is governed by the contract of employment. So it's an agreement between me and yourself. For example, you would pay me a salary of X amount and I will do A, B, C for you. Now, if one person wants to change the terms of our arrangement, our agreement, there must be mutual consent. You must agree, I must agree. If I don't agree and you unilaterally as the employer impose on me certain new requirements which I never contracted for, that in itself is a breach of my agreement. So when there's a breach of my agreement, which is quite serious in nature, I can consider myself constructively dismissed by the actions of the company. So that's in respect of the disincentives if you try to force workers to be vaccinated. But when it comes to incentives, my suggestion would be paid leave, give them an extra bonus, for example, a small token of appreciation for being conscientious, for agreeing to be vaccinated, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it must be a bargain. It is the contractual bargain between the employer and the employee.
On to international news. Japan will provide an additional 1.3 million doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine to Asian countries. Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi said the latest donation batch will go out as soon as possible. Taiwan will get 50,000 more doses, bringing Japan's total donation to the island to 3.9 million. 400,000 doses will be given to Vietnam, 300,000 doses to Thailand, and 100,000 doses to Brunei. To date, Japan has given out more than 23 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine produced in Japan. It has inked a contract for 120 million doses of the vaccine, but decided not to roll it out across the country due to reports of blood clots. A new COVID-19 outbreak in China's southeastern Fujian province has sparked concerns over infections among unvaccinated school children. The local government has ordered mass testing on all 3.2 million residents in the city of Putian, where the latest outbreak originated. Local health authorities linked the source of the latest infection to a parent of a primary school pupil. He had returned to China from Singapore in August and completed quarantine before testing positive this month after developing COVID-19 symptoms. The outbreak has now increased to more than 100 people, with at least 35 involving school children. Schools from kindergarten to university have been told to switch to online learning. Residents were ordered to stay home as city officials closed major roads linking the city in a bid to contain the outbreak. Korea has fined Google US $177 million for blocking a customized version of its Android operating system. The fine is one of the highest levied in the country over abuse of market dominance. The Korea Fair Trade Commission said Google hampered competition by making manufacturers such as Samsung and LG Electronics sign an anti-fragmentation agreement. This would prevent gadget makers from developing or using modified versions of the Android OS. Google has said it would appeal the decision. Korea in August became the first country to pass a law forcing Apple Inc. and Google to open up their app stores to outside payment systems. Norway is set for a new government as the left-wing opposition won the country's general election. After 8 years in power, Conservative Prime Minister Erna Solberg conceded defeat and will step down. The election campaign was dominated by climate change and the future of the country's oil and gas industry. The largest opposition bloc, Labour, is expected to form coalition with other left-leaning parties as it seeks to reduce inequality in Norway and to transition away from the oil economy. The oil sector accounts for 14% of Norway's GDP as well as 40% of its exports. Labour leader Jonas Gahr Store is expected to become the country's next prime minister. If he does, it means all 5 Nordic nations will have left-wing leaders for the first time in over 6 decades. The government PHMOU is set to finally implement Undi 18, allowing 5.8 million youth to vote. Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests what it would take to mobilize the youth vote and what they would like to see. All we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from Astro, awani.com, and Astro AWANI app. I'm Saraya Mia. We'll see you again.